Buenos días, bom dia, good morning. Bienvenidos a nuestro seminario.
Welcome to this seminar, the launch of the Global Report on Ageism in the Americas. Thank you so very much for your participation. My gratitude, thank you. My name is Patricia Marsh. I'm the advisor for healthy aging in PAHO, and I'm the moderator of this meeting, which will launch the Global Report of the UN on Ageism, which is indeed a key product of the World Campaign Against Ageism and provides a framework for the prevention and combating of ageism. The report summarizes the best available evidence and offers an opportunity so that the parties concerned may have strategies based on evidence in order to reduce ageism. Before yielding the floor for a welcome by Dr. Enrique Vega, head of the Healthy Life course in PAHO, I would like to give you some guidance and ideas that you must bear in mind during our seminar. The meeting will be broadcast in 3 languages, English, Portuguese, and Spanish. I ask you to make certain that you have selected the language of your preference. In order to choose your language, click the interpretation button in the lower line of your screen. It is an icon that looks like the globe, and there you can use the language you may wish to listen into.
Zoom screen at the icon globe. Tradução ao português está disponível na barra inferior da sua tela do Zoom, no ícone em forma de globo. Esta sessão será gravada e posteriormente
This meeting will be recorded and then shared on the Healthy Aging page, as well as the YouTube channel of PAHO in the 3 languages. Likewise, realize that this is an informative meeting and we will not be having a specific session for questions and answers. However, you may use the chat function in order to carry out conversations and seek out more information, such as the biographies of panelists and relevant information. You can also ask questions in the question and answer section that may be answered. To begin with, I would like to invite Dr. Enrique Vega to give us the welcome remarks. Dr. Vega, you are recognized. Go ahead.
Muchas gracias por
Good morning, and thank you so very much for being here with us today for the World Health Organization, Pan American Health Organization. It is indeed a great honor to be able to launch today this World Report on Ageism, undoubtedly the basic tool for one of the main challenges that our society confronts at present, which is that of eliminating discrimination because of age. Undoubtedly, that discrimination through age is something which is present throughout life, and it tends to increase as people become older, but at no point in time are we free entirely of this potential discrimination. This is why this approach in the report is quite clear, and it invites to eradicate this very serious social problem. For us in the organization, it is paramount to consider the work of all sectors in the field of health. Very many international agencies of the UN system, as well as the Inter-American system, that work jointly in order to promote efforts having to do with this. Therefore, you're all more than welcome. We have a luxury program for today. That's all for now, and I thank you once again for your presence here today. Go ahead, Patricia. Thank you so very much, Dr. Vega. To begin with our program, we'll be listening consideration on ageism, beginning with a video of Adam Bartholomew, a member of the group of young persons of PAHO for Health. Fernando, can you play the video, please? Go ahead.
Good day to all. My name is Bartholomew. I'm 19 years old and I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. I began advocating for mental health in my school and country in 2019 and I joined the PAHO Youth for Health group in 2021. I'm pleased to be a part of this event today. I'm thankful for the opportunity to share my views on ageism. Ageism is discrimination based on age, which can affect people of any age. I am thankful that I have not had to face ageism directly, but I have witnessed other people in my life face ageism, and I am aware of the impact it has on them and the indirect impact it has on others, including me. According to the Global Report on Ageism, ageism reduces people's quality of life, increases their social isolation and loneliness, which is associated with mental illnesses like depression and anxiety. These problems caused by ageism hinder older people's ability to work, which creates a misconception that they are incapable of working, which causes even more age discrimination to occur. So it is truly a vicious cycle which propagates itself. And so the question now becomes, how do we break this vicious cycle of ageism? The Global Report on Ageism suggests 3 ways. 1. Policy and law. 2. Educational interventions. And 3. Intergenerational contact interventions. And I want to discuss each of these with regard to how they are relevant to me, my country and region. Policy and law. I find it crazy that legal ageism still exists in my country and throughout the world. In Trinidad and Tobago, the compulsory age of retirement is 60. As a result of this, my father, who is a captain for our national airline, may have no choice but to retire in a few years' time, while in many other countries, the retirement age has been raised. This will mean that his income will become significantly reduced, which will not only affect his quality of life, but our whole families. Furthermore, the former principal of my school turned 60 at the end of last year. He was the most amazing and inspiring principal who was devoted to our students and to helping us to develop holistically. But as a result of the retirement age being 60, our school of more than 900 students has lost this magnanimous leader who impacted all of our lives. It is therefore abundantly clear that ageism faced by people of one age bracket affects people of other age brackets. Why should people like my father, who is a competent pilot, and my former principal, who is an excellent leader and teacher, have to stop working? What is preventing them from doing the occupations that they love? Not their age. Ageism. Legal ageism. Metaphorically speaking, ageism clips people's wings, preventing them from flying, and so legal ageism must be eradicated. This law of retiring at 60 was created long ago, when life expectancy was much shorter and the quality of healthcare, both physical and mental healthcare, were much lower than they are today. And so if we in Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean and across the globe wish to state to any extent that we are developing and progressing, then our laws must change and evolve with time to ensure that all people who are capable of working can work. For this will not only improve the lives of individuals, but will promote economic and sustainable development through increasing the size, potential, skill, productivity, and experience of our workforce. There is a misconception that high youth unemployment is a direct result of people staying in the workplace longer. But a study of OECD countries shows that in countries where there are high participation rates among older workers, youth unemployment in fact drops, as when older workers are properly employed in positions that leverage their experience and wisdom, they create entry-level positions that they need to support the work they're doing. And so it is clear that our policies and laws need to change. But as we speak about policy and law, we recall that even though the Civil Rights Act of the 1960s arguably ended legal racism in America, racism continued to exist among individuals in American society, which meant that Americans of African descent continued to face discrimination. Likewise, even if we are able to get rid of ageist laws, we cannot expect that this will instantly put an end to ageism at the individual level. Because even by introducing anti-ageism policies and laws, some people will still have stereotypes and prejudice which will influence their actions towards others. It is therefore important that we dispel such stereotypes and prejudice. And I think in order to do this, this is where the second strategy to reduce ageism comes in: educational interventions. The topic of ageism should be introduced in the school curriculum so that students can be formally educated about the issue. But beyond formal education, there must be non-formal awareness efforts, utilizing all forms of media, including social media. In 2020, after the death of George Floyd in America, we saw how social media was utilized optimally to put a spotlight on the racism that exists in America and cause people around the world to reflect upon the racism that exists in their own countries, including in Trinidad and Tobago. Also, within the past few years in my country, social media has been used to inform people of the murders of young women, which has highlighted the issue of gender-based violence in our country. And so the power of social media is clear, but it is with this great power that it is our great responsibility to use the applications like TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook to raise awareness and sensitize people about ageism. Young people must become aware of the fact that ageism may affect them both now, when they're younger, and in the future, when they are older, unless we do something to change it. And with this big push toward diversity in various institutions, people must realize that promoting diversity does not only mean including persons of different races, ethnicities, genders, and socioeconomic backgrounds, but also of different ages, because every age group has lived through different experiences, which gives each a unique perspective on life and the way the world should be. Therefore, when it comes to decision making at any level in society, it is crucial that people, both young and old, are heard and considered. Employers must also realize there are many benefits of employing younger people, such as the fact that they tend to have more physical energy, and that there are also many benefits of having older people as part of the team, such as the wealth of experience which they bring. No one can be good at everything, but everyone is good at something. And this is why I agree wholeheartedly that there is no better way of reducing ageism than through intergenerational contact interventions, which is the third strategy of the Global Report on Ageism. While it is good to inform people of how great our young and old people are, it is even better if they can witness for themselves the strengths and abilities of our young and old people through the enabling of younger generations and older generations to collaborate and work with one another. In the Caribbean, we have a culture in which grandparents and grandchildren have very close relationships. Many people in the Caribbean, in fact, share home with their grandparents. And I think that overall, we as Caribbean people value the wisdom and knowledge that members of older generations tend to have. But I think what would be great is if we can transition from viewing old people simply as sources of knowledge to realizing that many still want to work so that they can use their knowledge to transform our societies. Personally, I have previously held stereotypes about people of older generations, but through educating myself, I have been able to dispel many of my misconceptions. I hope that in my life and work, I never have to face ageism, so that I may always be able to do what I love. I think it is the responsibility of each of us to be introspective and assess the ways in which we may be ageist towards both older and younger people, so that coming together, we can all say no to ageism. And in the words of the Global Report on Ageism, create a world for all ages. Thank you.
El segundo video representa la perspectiva de las
Second
personas.
video is the perspective of the older people. We will be Dr. Marta Samais, advisor for healthy development, PAHO member of the group of WHO, OMS, former officials.
So as an older person, I want to focus on
Querría focalizar
stereotypes as the foundation of most implicit ageism affecting our health and well-being. Explicit discrimination because of age can be addressed and perhaps changed with policies, education, and legislation. In this webinar, you will be examining those tools which are important but not sufficient. Implicit age stereotypes, on the other hand, are only changed by changing attitudes, perceptions, and behavior, and that's not easy. However, public health has a lot of experience dealing with campaigns to change attitudes, perceptions, behaviors related to health. And ageism is a behavior that really affects our health. But this campaign has to start with unveiling our own prejudices. And in order to successfully uncover implicit age stereotypes among persons of all ages, communities, and health systems, we need to create a movement very much like the Me Too movement, in which every one of us says, yes, I have felt it, I have seen it, I have done it, and it's not right. So I'm sharing with you right now a picture of my mother and I. Ageism is very personal. My mother had a little notebook where she wrote her feelings from time to time. And after her death, I found the notebook and I found this entry. She had actually asked herself a question: what is the most difficult thing for a person over 90 years old? And she answered, being understood by young people. That surprised me. We who have passed the 90s, she wrote, are old-fashioned. We no longer have wisdom according to them. So the note surprised me because my mother was surrounded by lots of love and by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. We all felt that she was the matriarch of our family, the backbone of all of us. I never thought for a moment that there was a misalignment between the role she wanted to have in the family and the family's behavior. So that really surprised me. So I asked myself, were we condescending? Did we think she still was more of an object of care rather than the caregiver she had always been? Or was she simply loved and cherished, but never or no longer called for advice, not always included in decisions that needed to be made? So guess what? I'm close to my 80s, and now I really understand what she meant. So in my mother's memory, I would like to focus on those implicit forms of ageism that impact an older person's well-being and health. So what is it? Well, implicit the stereotype in a person is not unique to older persons. It happens to women because of sex. It happens to racial and ethnic minorities because of color or ethnicity. It happens to those who identify themselves as LGBTQ because of sexual orientation. Many of us would never consider ourselves ageist, machistas, racist, or homophobic, but we still may hold culturally accepted stereotypes that we have internalized through our lives, still act on them, but be completely unaware that they are. So I'm going to give you some examples of what I think is ageism, this implicit ageism. When I say to myself, my time for traveling is over, I don't want to be away from home anymore. It may be that in reality, what I'm saying to myself, I am too old to travel. Or my niece would say, when I visit my grandma, I will not confide on her because I don't want to worry her with my problems, when in fact she's thinking my grandma is too old to understand. So those culturally accepted stereotypes are doing harm. They're really diminishing the world of the older person. So what is it? Let me reiterate. When age becomes the basis for regarding older person's health, vitality, and activity, I am perceiving age as an instrument for defining what an older person can do. That's implicit ageism. When I perceive age as a factor for determining how much autonomy an older person can have, I am depriving that person from the continuity of identity that defines us as human beings. When I accept that an older person is no longer able to enjoy life because of age, or need intimacy or companionships or socialization because of age, I am actually being ageist. So how do we change that? We know attitudes can change, but not without interventions that identify the what that needs to be changed. So someone says, you look great. Would never know you were 80. Or, oh, look, she can still walk a marathon. Incredible for her age. When we said to ourselves, I'm not old, I just have juventud acumulada or accumulated youth, therefore I can still enjoy life. Well, implicit in all of this is that being old is looking awful and not functioning. that old age means that you cannot enjoy life, so you have to hold on to what you think a youth would do. How often do we say life has no age? Really? All living things that have an age, and that is okay. Being 80 is part of my identity. My life has an age. I'm 79, I'm 80, I'm 85, whatever. And that is who I am. Implicit ageism deprives an older person of his or her reality. So I'm going to conclude with a self-test. I only have a few minutes. If age is instrumental for defining what an older person can do, you're ageist. If age is a factor for determining how much autonomy an old person can have, you're ageist. Age determines your acceptability of an older person's need for socialization, companionship, intimacy, and enjoyment of life, you're ageist. So test yourself, be honest, and be vigilant. As an older person, I cannot allow others to see me through stereotypes that are harmful. So dignity and well-being has no age. I hope this becomes a movement of the decade. Implicit ageism underlines most explicit discriminatory practices in enlightened institutions. Therefore, let us fight for fairness along the life course. And the life course includes those who are in their hundreds or older. When public health agencies do not invest in promoting healthy aging with evidence-based interventions and programs, we're not treated fairly. When science does not include older people in research, we're not treated fairly. When medical schools graduate primary care physicians without any training in geriatrics, we're not treated fairly. So I'm going to now end with one of my favorite authors, gerontologist Becca Levy, who says eradication of ageism requires addressing the enemy within. And that enemy within has to be fought not only by older people, but by societies, institutions, even public health agencies. So let us do it, and let us fight these stereotypes as if our life depends on it, because it does. Let us call it whatever we see it. Your mission is to eradicate ageism. Our mission is to eradicate ageism by 2030.
Muchas gracias, Marta y Adam, por compartir sus
Thank you,
experiencias
Adam
y
and
perspectivas con
Marta
nosotros.
and Alana for sharing your experiences. Thank you so much.
Now, following our program, I would have the pleasure to introduce Carolina Holmes, my colleague, to talk about the life course perspective and ageism. Carolina, the floor is yours.
Muchas gracias, Patricia. Bueno, este tema del edadismo.
Thank you so much, Patricia. The topic of edadismo, as Adam and Dr. Peláez have mentioned, is a very important topic today around the world. From the minute that we are born, we forget that our process of aging begins. Aging doesn't mean being old. It's a process, sometimes elapsed from the time we're born to the time we go through the course of life. It is a process that generates many types of dynamics. We have had, and we will have many events in our lives with capabilities that allow us to make decisions. We make decisions about our environment, about the policies that surround us, about the health system. And when we're active, we, of course, have many sources of intimidation. And then, as Adam in his video very well explained, the ageism problem. As we grow old, we have through this course of life, but we have the impact of different experiences. We may have a positive or negative results depending on how things go. Thanks to the advances in public health, we see that life expectancy has increased significantly in almost 30 years. And even though this achievement in the past few years is remarkable, we have seen that sometimes the older adults still face problems. We have technological and social developments, and those developments affect each generation. Transitions affect all of us, not only demographic transitions, but also social, technological, and others. We are in constant change in scenarios that in which we live every day that affect public health. We at PAHO, excuse me, we have defined the course of life and the dynamic relationship of previous exposures throughout life to health results and mechanisms through which we have positive or negative influence that set our roadmap in matters of human and social developments, and this impacts the results for health results for the individual and the population. All of these transitions show the effect of time in our life. When we talk about health, we are talking about health as a result, as a resource that is being built. And we are not minimizing risk, but we have to construct to improve health. And so we want all individuals through the course of life to prosper and to thrive. And then, of course, we have to have strategies and collaboration with other systems, integration of systems and services with the objective of improving health of the people, the communities throughout their course of life. Understanding the development and the lack of capabilities is something very important to be able to define the priorities in longevity. It doesn't matter at which point of life the person is located within this chart. We have to have activities, we have to have the right policies to be able to keep functionality. We have to think that we must have healthy agents. And then throughout the course of life, whatever decisions we make, everything will influence physical well-being and health. And then we have to bring into the picture the social and environmental determinants of health and family determinants of health. And all of this reflects the reality and the family context, social and economic context. So we have two poles, health and disease. So we have to go through transitions. We have to go through environments in which we can mark differences in the building of health and well-being. Within this context, we have to see how the generational and societal impact affects all of these people. Each generation has their own aims, their own aspirations, baby boomers, millennials, etc. But all of this is interacted with technology as the main source of information. So we see how within all of these generations, the access of information and the way in which we acquire health and healthcare changes. And we see different generational sets here. And if we don't know this, then it will be very difficult for decision makers to adapt each policy and each intervention to each group. So these are characteristics and generational preferences that must be taken into consideration for all the services. In the global report on ageism, we are referring to stereotypes, how we think, prejudices, how we feel, and discrimination, how we act. And this, of course, is considered in accordance with the age of the people. We have given large and enough wide-ranging evidence covering all the groups represented here by these individuals and these concepts. Talking about aging itself through the course of life. All of these influences the behavior of the older people. Young people and the elderly have ageism, are topics and targets of ageism. Discrimination because of age against the young is just a bias, not because of the period of life, but for other biases. For instance, when we think of young people, they are assigned unfavorable stereotypes because of their relationship with older people. Research reveals that these stereotypes related to young people influence the idea that they are pampered or that the young people don't have any experience, they are not experts. So all of these unfavorable stereotypes toward the young are conceived by the elderly population or the young people. And then, of course, we see economic instability in the younger population as they grow, as the young people grow. Other things do not take into consideration emergent maturity of adolescents. And then some of these topics already have a general stigmatization, such as sexual and reproductive health and mental health. To be young means to have to overcome obstacles, stereotypes, and prejudices. And this can affect the autonomy of the young people. As we turn to be an older generation with more longevity, we see how these prejudices affect the health different age groups. And then, of course, this affects the intergenerational relationships. In this multi-generational concept, we have a society with complex structures, and we have to be aware of the differences. And these differences include gender discrimination, race discrimination, age discrimination, and all of these are topics that we are discussing today. And this can happen at any point in time in a person's life, whether the person is young, whether the person is an adult or old. But ageism is become a topic that is tolerated in our society. It is a very serious problem, and it has serious consequences. In these debates, of course, we always have the elderly participating, but there are many other people that should be debating this, because ageism is a phenomenon that affects the entire course of life. All of these perceptions will influence life because it affects the behavior of younger people towards the older people. And also, we have to take all of this information to create models for the course of life. This is a study on stereotypes and ageism, talking about children. We ask children, what are the first few words that you think of when we talk about the elderly? So red are negative words, green are positive words, and blue means neutral words. So we will see, for instance, the different importance of these terms. Elderly, for instance, is a negative word, but grandma is a positive word. For the parents, the most frequent word is loneliness, nursing home, and disease. And the parents have some positive words such as experience and grandparents and wisdom. And then the grandparents provided positive words in 47% of the case and negative words in 46%. And so for the grandparents, it reflects percentage of 47%, but the negative words was slightly higher. Were slightly higher. So I wanted to share this with you because it is important to underline that the opinions that we have about aging and all the stereotypes associated with it is something that we develop throughout life. The ideas that people have about self-aging, and this influences their behavior about the elderly and their conceptions of aging are already important when people are adolescents and when people are adults. Many studies have demonstrated that negative opinions about elderly early in life are related to worse results for health in the adult age. So this could have a negative impact in the health of people. So based on all of these findings about the vision and the view that young adults have of aging, it represents the basis for stereotypes about aging. So it is important to consider this point to consider the outlook that you will have on aging. Most of studies have centered on the characteristics of the vision of aging during infancy, adolescence, and adult age. So we know very few details of how the family develops this vision. So the reality is that people are living a longer life, and then all aspects that exist in society have to be taken into consideration, such as housing, long-term care, social protection, and then intergenerational links. The world continued to experience a very drastic change in the age of the population, and the proportion of elderly people is growing fast. Younger adults are the first generation that has been poorer than a former generation. And then, of course, their elderly counterparts, of course, are poorer. So aging is seen as an additional burden for society. It is a challenge for the health services and the work and financial markets. So we have this view expressed by the millennials and other groups, younger groups. Historically, younger workers are really affected by economic recession, but this is also reflected because of the COVID pandemic-19. The elderly contribute significantly to society and to the economy, as you can see in this slide.
This has emphasized physical, social vulnerability of all the generations, as exposed their fragility of older adults, considering their specific needs. Hope to continue to work, ensuring that society may have the capacity and necessary resources to meet these demands, which have become indeed true challenges. To conclude, we know that there are many challenges before us. One of these is that we have to continue on highlighting that the core of action has to be the individual. Focusing on the individual means getting to know the individual and the context in time, and this is not specific of health-oriented episodes. This means intergenerational reciprocity. This will call for a restructuring of programs to align them with the intergenerational perspective, having individual at center of actions and all steps that have to do within the context of community. Course of life approach gives us tools to overcome those negative attitudes vis-a-vis aging. Intergenerational practice, a way of closing those gaps and reducing discrimination. The approach must be one of building and thus improve well-being and health throughout the course of life. Course of life approach presents a new focus on life, how we look at it. Health is a resource, it's a capability that is being built. It is not pre-assigned. This concept must be tangible, therefore it must be measured, and therefore it is important to know what is the capacity generation. The course of life will allow us to see how those inequalities may be transmitted and take up those inequities, and how can they be reduced within and between generations. This has to go beyond disease and must have a longitudinal approach with a multi-sectoral approach, including healthcare services. And lastly, very important, policies and legislation must protect people against any sort of ageism and promote rights for all. Thank you. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you very much, Carolina, for this excellent presentation, which opens up a space to comprehend better the impact of ageism throughout the course of life, and to begin a discussion on the importance of having this report and the campaign to combat ageism.
Now I have the pleasure to introduce Alana Officer, the unit head of the demographic change and healthy aging of the WHO. Alana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Patricia. It is such an incredible pleasure to be here. And maybe I just want to reflect, and you can write something in the chat, but Adam and Martha and others spoke about experiences of ageism. And I'm interested in this room, on this online, have any of you ever felt or been told that you're too young or in fact too old to be or to do something? So have you also experienced ageism? Age, as we've heard, is one of the first characteristics, along with gender and race, that we tend to notice about people when we interact with them. It's also one of the main aspects on which we categorize people. So ageism, according to the World Report, to the Global Report on Ageism, is how we think, so stereotypes, how we feel, prejudice, and how we act, discrimination towards others and towards ourselves on the basis of age. We're not born ageist, but it does start early and it is reinforced over time. Children as young as 4 years are aware of their culture's age stereotypes and their culture's prejudices. So they get that through storybooks, through watching TV, through media, and also through our family cultures. And as we've heard from Martha, these stereotypes are internalized and they're used to guide our feelings and behaviors towards people of different ages, but also towards ourselves. So ageism affects people of all ages. And it also exists in almost every aspect of our lives, in our institutions, in our relationships, and of course, in ourselves. But as we've heard, it tends to take on different forms across the life course. For example, thinking older people are a burden on society is an example of an ageist stereotype that discounts the many contributions that older people make. Feeling fearful when you see a group of younger people together is an ageist prejudice. Adam cited 2 examples of not being able to work because of your age, so mandatory retirement, or being denied a job or even healthcare are considered discrimination, age-based discrimination. And the COVID pandemic exposed ageism and just how rife it is in our society. Chronological age was used as the sole criterion for, in some countries, that needed to physically distance. Not counting older people, not disaggregating data on the basis of age, not collecting data in nursing homes are examples of ageist of discrimination. Again, using chronological age as the sole criterion for allocating resources, including ventilators or ICU, are examples of ageism. Now, we understand that age can be important if there is a lower chance of survival with increasing age, but age should not be the sole criterion. Frailty, functional status, ability to benefit are all other pertinent characteristics or criteria for decision-making. So ageism has no place in resource rationing. And the UN report on ageism found that, in fact, ageism is absolutely everywhere. 1 in 2 people, or half of the world's population, have moderate or very high ageist attitudes against older people, with rates, quite surprisingly, much higher in low-income countries. The evidence in the report indicates that you're much more likely, in fact, to be ageist against older people if you're younger, if you're male, if you're fearful of dying or fearful of death, and you tend to be less educated. You're more likely to experience ageism if you're older, if you're in need of care or getting care, so care dependent, or if you live in a country that's got lower healthy life expectancy, or you work in certain sectors like hospitality and tech. For younger people, unfortunately, we have much less data. We only have data on younger people really in the European region, and that gives us data on all age groups. And older and younger people in Europe report the highest rates of experienced ageism within all groups. So it tends to peak in younger and older ages, with younger people, in fact, reporting much more age discrimination than other age groups. If you're younger, being young and female means that you're more likely to be a target of ageism. And you may ask, so it's very prevalent, but is it harmful? Indeed, it is harmful, and it is very, very, very costly. So ageism is associated with earlier death, poorer physical and mental health, including the onset of depression, social isolation and loneliness, taking more risks with your health, such as eating an unhealthy diet, drinking excessively, or smoking, and much poorer quality of life. But ageism doesn't only affect us as individuals. Ageism devalues or limits our ability to benefit from what younger and older people can contribute. It tends to erode the solidarity between generations and has really serious economic consequences for individuals and for society, costing the society billions. So ageism is incredibly harmful, but it also has been found to exacerbate other forms of disadvantage related to sex, disability, and race, for example. But the overarching message of the UN report is really positive. It's very optimistic. We can actually combat ageism. And Adam mentioned the 3 strategies that work. So 3 strategies work to combat ageism: policy and law, educational activities, and intergenerational contact interventions. So if we look at those in a little bit more detail to understand why they work. So policy and law can really address discrimination and inequality based on age and protect the human rights of everyone everywhere. It can be used to reduce or eliminate ageism against any age group. Different mechanisms are used to implement and monitor policies and laws, including human rights agencies, courts, ombudsman, and different bodies to uphold treaties. And having those mechanisms to monitor and enforce age inequality law is really, really important. The second intervention is around educational activities. And they include instructions to transmit information and knowledge and skills, as well as activities that enhance empathy, like role play, simulation, virtual reality. And these are, in fact, one of the most effective interventions for reducing ageism against older people. We don't yet know whether they work effectively against young people in terms of our available evidence. And the last intervention is around intergenerational interventions. And the aim there is really to foster interaction between people of different generations. And they tend to be effective for reducing ageism against older people, very promising in terms of younger people. And ideally, if countries can implement all 3 strategies at the same time, law and policy, educational, and intergenerational activities, they tend to be much more effective. Even just implementing educational intergenerational contact interventions have higher effectiveness. So the report suggests that there is a way forward for us. and that we all can and must do something really to combat ageism. So we need to implement and scale up the 3 evidence-based strategies that the report outlines that do address both prevent and respond to ageism. We have to improve our data and research to gain a better understanding of ageism and how to reduce it, particularly data and research on younger people, but also more in low and middle income countries. And we need to change the narrative to create much more positive and accurate narratives. We know that culture is really fluid. Look at the change that women have experienced over the past decades. So to conclude, ageism affects all of us. It is absolutely everywhere. It is incredibly harmful with very, very serious impacts on our health, well-being, and on our economies. It can be combated, which is really positive, and we all have a role to play in challenging and eliminating it. And the report outlines what you can do as different stakeholders. And so we'd really like you to encourage you to join the movement to create a world for all ages. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alana, for being here with us today and for your great presentation on so many important information on ageism. And many of those and even more are available at the report. So I would like to invite you all to read the report, to assess the report, and the link to access it in English, Spanish, and Portuguese will be available on the chat. Thank you again, Alana. Entendemos que el edadismo puede afectar.
Acknowledge that ageism can affect any person, any age, as Carolina has told us, as Alana said, and in keeping with the experience that we share with them, and the videos of Adam and Martha as well. But we would like to draw your attention on ageism toward the older people and make a plea to action in order to promote this issue within the decade of healthy aging. This decade is a global effort which has as a main objective to improve the standard of living of older people, their families, relatives, and communities. One of the fields of endeavor of this decade has to do with changing our way of thinking, feeling, and acting vis-a-vis age and old age. In spite of the onerous contributions that have been made by older people to society and their tremendous diversity, the negative attitudes toward them are very common throughout societies. Rare times does it happen that the people that these are questioned, they're very detrimental to health and the well-being of the elderly, as we saw as a point of fact in the previous presentations. The struggle against these negative stereotypes, prejudice, and discrimination must be an integral part of all the steps and actions developed during this decade, at the same time that we carry out other activities as well in order to bring about a more positive approach, more realistic regarding age and aging, as well as societies which are capable of bringing in all age groups. We've received many comments in the chat about the importance of intergenerational integration, as well as the positive approach of age and aging. Therefore, a follow-up to a seminar will allow us to listen to presentations on the 3 strategies presented under the report to combat ageism, which were mentioned by Adam and Alana presented to us as well. To begin with, I would like to yield the floor to Mrs. Flor Murillo, Ministry of Health of Costa Rica, Mrs. Flor Murillo, to present the experience of her country regarding policies and legislation with concentrating on elderly people. Flor, you have the floor. Here I am, Patricia. Good morning, everyone. We're very happy to be with you here this morning. So we're going to start by speaking about the policies and legislation, the American Convention on the Promotion of Human Rights for Elderly People, which is indeed a legal instrument that will allow us to indeed set in motion certain steps to be able to work with regard to ageism. Delfina, what I would say is that May we continue showing the slides? Yes, older people have and we have rights, undoubtedly. And those rights must be given, must be respected, and must be brought to practice in each and every one of the countries. It is not enough just to have it, but we must have equality of human rights, integration, autonomy, long-term efforts. All of those rights indeed must be respected in each and every one of the countries. This is the reason precisely why the Convention of Human Rights for the elderly was created. And indeed, this step forward with the Inter-American Convention is indeed very important for countries. Let us continue on, Delfina. Why do we say this? Well, because so happens that we have rights, as I was saying, which are human rights. And in Costa Rica, they have been seen from the legal and constitutional point of view. And we see that there has been the legislation and the legal framework, as well as the Inter-American Convention, which was established back in 2016. And in Costa Rica, it was ratified later on in 2017. Costa Rica has ratified 13 Inter-American treaties on human rights. And I will be referring here to the importance of having this legal framework, which has been the result of the social indicators and the lengthy democratic trajectory of the administrations we've had in Costa Rica that will have a positive repercussion indeed upon all actions and steps having to do with prevention, promotion of health for older people, and especially all that has to be with the rights as individuals.
Costa Rica has created a legal framework, and as we will see, we will explain this from the course of life. This is a way to work and to contribute to develop the tools to be able to work, such as having decrees and laws focusing on course of life. We see a robust legal framework in Costa Rica. We have the general law for older persons, and this allows us to see the opportunities that people have to have a decent life, active participation in the formulation and implementation of policy, promotion of the participation of older adults in family and community groups. We will see this in detail in the next few minutes. I will mention this. There are other laws. We see, for instance, the Charter of San Jose on the rights of older people in Latin America and the Caribbean. We have included the protection of older people, and also we have talked about legislation on taxes for older people. Also, the Costa Rican system includes a community living arrangements and shelters for older people that have been abandoned or that are homeless. So all of these shows a very robust legal framework for Costa Rica. This robust framework allows Costa Rica to translate this into measures for the older population. We consider here human rights. We go to the social rule of law, to the legal framework, but we cannot stop at the legal framework. We need implementation. We need social programs to make sure that legislation is applied effectively. If we do not work in social programs to be able to translate all of these principles into practice, people with disability, migrant women and young people, older people who are the target of our work, they will not be benefited from this program. So all of these laws should be converted into social work, but social work has to have financing. And there are some works, some of these programs that require laws and decrees. We have some of these laws for people of all ages. We have this for pensions. We have this for just women. We have laws for health services. We have laws for the older persons, etc. I will explain all of these programs. For instance, we have comprehensive care for older persons here, and this regulates all the policies that we have to make sure that people can remain, the older person can remain in their own environment, in the community or in the family group. And we have 55 networks of care for the older people in the country with a coverage of about 14,000 people. So this is one of the social programs that has taken into consideration all of the aspects because of these laws. Regarding the Inter-American Convention on Human Rights for older persons, we have several things, several factors: employment, recreation, technology, regulation of care, and all of these topics of the convention have to be translated into a response. And this has to be an institutional and social response at the local, regional, and national level. So how have we done this in Costa Rica? We have a response here. The response in health has to do with comprehensive health care and state duties. We have several topics here. We have to have support measures to make sure that we all can channel our efforts through the work that we have pending at the present time. We are working on the National Health Care Plan, and the Ministry of Health has emphasized and implemented several health programs targeting the older persons that are over 65 years of age. They have worked on the promotion of actions for education to make sure that they promote healthy lifestyles and self-care. Delfina, we will keep on going. On the other hand, we see the response of the health sectors through a network of care services in 5 regions. And here we have 1,043 EBAIs, which are basic healthcare teams. And they work with peripheral hospitals, national hospitals, and specialized hospitals, and also clinics, first-level clinics and second-level clinics. So this is the response from the health sector in Costa Rica. On the other hand, for the older people, we have the National Hospital for Geriatrics and Gerontology. That's the Cervantes National Hospital. And it is a wonderful institute, has wonderful health professionals that work on processes of education and strengthening of specialized care in geriatrics and gerontology. Also specialized center for the care of older persons. And the population care for their reaches about 300,000 people. And then we have, on the other hand, the fund, the Costa Rican Fund for Social Security. And this is another important policy from the government and targeting the care of older persons. And then this entity conducts and coordinates all the work for all care levels in a comprehensive way throughout a national network of health services. Regarding the response that we have, we also have the National Council for Older Persons called CONAPAN. And CONAPAN has a new director, Dr. Roman, and Dr. Roman has worked and has experience in Alzheimer's and other diseases. Regarding the response to the care in the care centers, we have access to substitute homes or alternative care systems so that people, the older persons, have the right to find care there if they are exposed to social risk. We have 93 homes where all of these are long stay homes where older persons can go for care. These people do not have appropriate care in their own homes, so they go and stay in these long-term care centers. Access to living quarters and to housing. We have law 7935, and this is a law that provides for a decent living arrangement in accordance with the need of the population, older persons. And this is for independent older persons. They have preferential systems of arrangements for living quarters. And then this is financed by the state. We also have a response regarding benefits for older persons, and that is Law 7935, Article 8. The older persons have access to public transportation, transportation by sea and by air, discounts for tickets to public and private centers of entertainment, recreation, culture, and sports. Also discounts for purchases of medicines, for prostheses, and for technical supplies. Also, for public transportation, the law covers financing through taxes contributed by other or premiums contributed by other users, especially when it comes to bus transportation. We have a response regarding employment. It is not easy to talk about employment among older persons. We have not solved this problem yet. We still are working on it. We have also a response in education, access to education at any level to prepare people for retirement. And this is very important. We have offered several facilities for study so that the older persons can see what they can have for the future in retirement. In the topic of employment, this is a topic that is of concern not only for people over 65, but people older than 40. Continue. There is a topic that has to do with recreation, and then the local governments have been working in recreation for older persons in their own communities to make sure that they have a way to enjoy life, to have social participation. And there is a policy for good treatment to make sure that we maintain adequate infrastructure. We, of course, need to include several administrative measurements for this, but this is under Law 7935. Many times in the preferential funds that have been established, the lines are long to get access to all of these benefits. But it is important to keep on working on this. We will continue, Delfina. There's a series of committees that have been established. The most important is the Committee or National Commission on Aging and Health that is called CONAIS. And the CONAIS is in charge of implementing the goals for the national strategy on aging, considering the course of life. There's also a commission for access to justice for older persons. The judicial system also has a section for the older persons. There are some measures for preferential treatment there for the older persons. And it's very important to have an analysis, a forum for analysis of public policies for the older persons. And that is called FONAPAN. And this is a relevant body to make sure that the older persons participate in this. And then 2 years ago, we established the national care system. And the priority is the care and the study of the risk, social risks for older persons. I just want to say that you have 1 more minute to wrap up. And I think that the response in the region has to do with vaccination and everything that we can do for the care of older persons. So we have had a response regarding the rights of the older person. So this is all I have to say. Thank you so much, Patricia. Thank you, Delfina, for having helped me with the presentation. Thank you for your presentation, Flor.
And now I invite Daniel Schuch, the Catholic University in Pelotas, Brazil, so that he can talk about educational strategies focusing on older adults.
Thank you, Patricia. Good morning to all. I want to congratulate all the presentations. They were excellent. And I would like to thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to participate in this important event and to talk about our strategy, our experience in the university. I represent our team of the health unit for older adults in the Catholic University in Pelotas. I want to congratulate our colleagues who are here representing our team. I'm Danielle Schuch Silva. I coordinate the multi-professional health for older adults and also Open University for Maturity. I will talk about our experience in this project, which is linked to our Extension Center. I am going to briefly talk about our university. It's in the south of Brazil, Rio Grande do Sul. It's a community college with more than 60 years of history. With social and educational actions, and the community colleges such as ours aim at offering education and social services to improve the quality of life of society. I am going to talk about our CIT3. It's the Extension Center to care for the older adults or third age, and it contributes to the transformation of the reality of older adults and the recognition of their role as citizens. The pictures you see there are events that were promoted by CIT3. One is a dance, another one is a bazaar of what is produced in our workshops, and this is organized by the members of CIT3. So we work with a physical structure that is very broad and where we conduct our activities. C3 is a center that promotes culture, citizenship, and health, contributing to the well-being of the participant. Activities that we have are workshops, groups, conversation groups, cultural and artistic events. We have two pictures of our members. The upper picture was an event for our gypsy dancing, and it received a prize in the region. And then below, a choir that participated in the National Fair of Sweets. So these were activities in which our groups participate. We also have bazaars, conferences for people, for older people. Our physical structure is we have a building that is next to our Institute for Children in Pelotas. So in the same physical structure, in the same building, we have children and older adults, and we try to stimulate the interaction between the two groups. C3 was restructured recently, and I will talk about that soon. And since then, we try to conduct integrated activities. The proposal is to have a greater interaction between among generations. The difficult, of course, during the pandemic, this was more difficult. But now that people have gone back to the buildings and to the classrooms, we are proposing strategies to integrate the two groups. They are in the same building. We have two pictures here that show the rooms. The rooms are very large for physical activities, for group activities. Some of the rooms are like classrooms, as you see on the right. That was a workshop that we conducted this year. And we also have kitchens. Our structure is really very broad. So beyond the actual physical structure, we know, of course, of the problems that were brought about by the pandemic. But when social distancing was implemented in 2020, we looked at it as an opportunity. So we expanded C3 in a different way. Until then, all the activities took place in our buildings. However, we improved a new way to promote health and education and health. We use Google Meet as a resource so that our participants can continue participating in our activities remotely. We helped in the technological development of the members of C3. There were workshops that were centered on technology and other areas. Now, the members of C3 can talk amongst themselves. They do video calling, and they understand how technology can help them in their activities in C3 and beyond. Not only did we improve our strategies as we went back to in-person classes and activities, we were not going to stop with our remote actions because we have now a broader reach. We were able to reach people that were not able to get to our building before. We are in a neighborhood, and not everybody could easily come to our building. Although in 2020, we had 150 people that participate in our center, working in our workshops. Most of the people do not live in the same neighborhood. Now, through technology, we are able to reach more people in the city of Pelotas. The activity was very important to reduce the impact of social distancing. In 2020, as I said, C3 exists since 1990, but recently in 2020, we were restructured, and the restructuring has to do with everything we're discussing today. The objective was to broaden the role of C3 in the community with a university courses. We wanted to reach and broaden the interaction between different people, different generation, different moments, educational moments. We have students that are just joining the university, students that are almost graduating. We have residents, we have teachers, professionals, older adults, so people from different ages and different groups participating in the restructuring process of C3. The process was developed through an extension program that includes 4 projects. The 4 projects are here. We have the Open University for Maturity, and 3 other projects, which is self-care and self-esteem, multi-professional geriatric care, and living and learning, not only for older people and for basic health care units. It works with professionals in the different units. Our project is been implemented for a year. We have a logotype that was created by the members of C3. Our Open University for Maturity was inspired in other experiences. And let me thank Professor Claudia Agen from UAP, the Open University from Sao Paulo for mature people. She was a great partner in the creation of our Open University for Maturity. She did the first class was offered by her. We have 4 extension projects. We started working in 2021, giving access to several areas that are in keeping with the statutes for the older adults in Brazil: permanent and continuous education, socialization, promotion of health, development of citizenship, and giving priority to participants over 60 years of age. What is the proposal that we have in this university, for this Open University for Maturity? It lasts for 2 years, and we have 15 to 20 students a year. We are, as we're going back in person to classes, we've been getting 20 students. This is for people who are 60 years old or older. In Brazil, person after 60 years is considered older. We have our own curriculum, our own structure, a proposal that was created for us, coordinated by a team of professors, professionals who are resident, who work in all the areas. We have more people on healthcare, but we also have professors from other areas and students as well. And all activities consider the reality and the experience of older adults, including art, social rights, and also technical aspects. We divide our classes per year. In the first year, we have these 3 classes: health and autonomy, rights and citizenship, and artistic maturity. And they deal with specific issues, and at every meeting, we have debates, we have guests, specialists in the areas that discuss. For example, in health and autonomy, we discuss on quality of life, autonomy of the older adults, rights and citizenship, to promote knowledge about civil rights, political rights. Some of our participants are part of the Council for the Older Adults in Pelopas. And the last is to make sure that human maturity can also have an echo in the creativity of the participants. The second year, we have other subjects, prevention and health in maturity, and also a subject that was developed by the residents. The objective is to integrate our C3 to what is happening in our basic healthcare units. The proposal is created as from the dialogues that we had from our of our groups, and we have strategies to work in the different communities.
Todas essas atividades que a gente está falando são para os nossos alunos. Tudo bem que essa última disciplina, eu citei que o intuito é dar retorno à comunidade.
All these activities are for our students, but we have activities that go beyond C3. It's for people to think in strategies to improve the quality of life, all those who are involved in our courses, and improve the quality of life of our participants.
We have two different projects, one for integration and the other one we call Pathways. This integrating project is developed in the first year, and it is a project for social development and health promotion, and it goes beyond the audience at the C3. So the class is split up in groups, and they work on activities for older adults, also outside C3. They consider their previous experience, the concepts they learned, and the integration of different knowledge. And how do we work on this project? Well, it starts with examining the reality. The students look at their reality, observe what is happening around them, where they live and their family, and then they identify possible problems. They debate with the group, and then they select one of the issues. And they consider if it's possible to propose some sort of action. This is also worked with the teachers. Some things require changing the law. But we try to think about something that the group can do in this first moment. And then they come up with hypotheses for these issues, and they create learning questions. And in group, they prepare a proposal for the action within this realm. Besides this first project, we created the Pathways project, trying to bring together activities in the Catholic University and these students. So it's a pathway to this university extension. So these students become involved in the university activities. So our students are part of the extension projects in different areas, and we try to integrate the different areas with this project. For many years, C3 was had been very important, but it was a bit distant. It wasn't very articulate, wasn't very connected to other activities in the Catholic University. And since we did the restructuring, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring together society and the academic community and bring them together in our activities. We also have the intergenerational interaction as a goal. We have people from different areas that are part of these projects. Most of the projects chosen to be part of the Pathways proposal are projects that involve different kinds of professionals, also to increase the interaction. We also consider the interaction with the academic community, and we want to broaden our knowledge and also offer the community something. And so how do we work on this trilhas or pathways project? So we had a debate with the students. This was done remotely because of the pandemic. And we presented all the extension projects that we had in the Catholic University, and we talked about them. And then we selected some of these projects so that we could talk to their coordinators. The coordinators were invited to CETRE so that they could talk about the project. And each one of the students could work. Sometimes they worked in pairs, and they worked with this project for a while. And in the UAMI meetings, the students talk about their experiences in these projects, and then we discuss it with the group. So we have people coming from different projects that talk about the experience, and they discuss with the others their participation. And these students also have an advisor that is part of our CITRES team. And how does this work? How do we organize these activities? Well, we don't want to have a very long, complicated curriculum. So we have activities that happen from time to time. So we are always discussing this. We're always discussing the curriculum and how we carry out these activities and how often they happen. All of this is discussed with the audience. We do this regularly every Friday afternoon. We have this remote meeting for a group. It's open, and we evaluate, assess the activities and restructure whatever we have to. Right now, we have activities on Wednesday afternoon. This is specific for UAMI, and CETRES has different activities that might happen every day, but the UAMI activities are every Wednesday, and we try to consider the projects and consider them in the realms of the two projects I talked about. And we evaluate the participation of the students and how the activities are being carried out. And we are developing these two projects, and the integrating project has two different stages. We have the preparation of the proposal and the presentation of the final product. And in the Pathways project, we have a monthly update and the debates that are related to this activity. I'm sorry to interrupt, but could you wrap up, please, in a minute, because we are going over the time already. Thank you, no problem. So just to wrap up, I'd like to show you some of the projects that were carried out last year. We had two documents that were created here. And one of them is, what does the city of Pelotas have to offer to older adults so that they can live better? This was identified by our group, and then it was prepared. There are three projects related to this. And to finish, I'd just like to highlight something in the next slide. We always have every year this multidisciplinary day, which is organized for the Older Adult Week. We have this up on YouTube. And so if you're interested, you can follow us on our social media. We have C3 underline UCPEL. That is usually what we use for our social media. And you can see it on the screen. And this is another moment that we have, an event that we have for our students, for the academic community, for older adults. So in general, these are the activities that we have in our center. We have several documents and summaries that were written by the students, and I brought them here, but I don't have time to show you. But anyway, I thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about our work to combat ageism. Thank you very much, Daniel.
I have the pleasure to introduce Mayoshi Moses for our last intervention to be presented about intergeneration activities. Mayoshi, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am delighted to join you today for the release of PAHO's groundbreaking global report on ageism. Addressing the long-standing and pervasive problem of ageism is a critical step in creating a more just and equitable world where people can live longer, healthier, and more fulfilling lives. I am grateful for this opportunity to discuss how AARP Foundation's Experience Corps and other intergenerational interventions can help end ageism, reducing the huge economic and human toll it exacts from older adults and society at large. I'd like to begin by sharing some background on AARP Foundation's Experience Corps. We are a community-based volunteer program that trains people over 50 to serve as tutors, helping students become better readers by the end of 3rd grade. On an average year, we serve more than 9,000 students and 2,300 volunteers. Our volunteers work in schools in high-need communities where a significant portion of kindergarten through 3rd grade students are reading below grade level. Experience Corps is a wonderful example of an intergenerational program that works on multiple fronts. It helps students succeed, helps older adults thrive, and builds strong intergenerational bonds in the process. And our program makes a real difference in the lives of children we serve. Our research shows by participating in our program, 65% of our students have improved their literacy skills by half a grade or more, and more than a third are reading at grade level. Over time, these gains add up. Students who live in poverty are 3 times more likely to drop out or fail to graduate high school on time than their more affluent peers. By helping children read proficiently, Experience Corps boosts the odds that they will graduate from high school and go on to further academic and career success. Yet we don't focus solely on academics. We keep the social and emotional well-being of the child front and center. The fact is, our students form close and caring relationships with their tutors and receive highly focused personal attention in their weekly tutoring sessions. That's a critical part of our program. Perhaps most important for our purposes today, our students demonstrate empathy for others, which has been found to be a critical component in combating ageism. While our students gain immeasurably from the tutoring they receive, what's wonderful is that our older adult volunteers gain just as much. Our volunteers talk about how they built a community with their fellow tutors, which is especially wonderful given how many older adults suffer from social isolation. Geeta Sethi, a volunteer from Buffalo, New York, is typical. She says, "The 2 days I volunteered were the happiest days of my week. I really like the group of tutors. We are like a small family. We sit and exchange ideas and talk about our obstacles as we discuss what worked and what didn't with the children." In addition to the anecdotal reports our group leaders receive, research shows that during their first year with Experience Corps, our volunteers have larger social networks, fewer symptoms of depression, higher engagement in their activities with others, and a stronger desire to contribute to others' development. Our tutors also enhance their cross-cultural understanding and change their perceptions by tutoring students who are of different backgrounds from themselves. For example, one older white man spoke fondly of a young Hispanic girl he worked with, whose favorite movie featured a character who looked like her. After hearing about the movie from the young girl, he went straight to Netflix to watch the movie so he could better understand her and her culture. In that way, he was able to build a stronger bond with her and gain a greater comprehension of her world and his own. This one man's experience was multiplied many times over during the pandemic, when virtual tutoring on Teams and Zoom brought many of our volunteers right into their students' homes through these screens. That window into their students' worlds was invaluable in building understanding, as our tutors could see how their students lived, what their relationships with their parents and siblings were like, and where they sat to do their homework. That perspective was worth its weight in gold. The bonds that our volunteers build with their students sometimes endure long after the program ends, a testament to their strength. Robert Rouse, a retired firefighter who tutored a third grade boy in Washington, D.C., is a great example. He took it upon himself to buy Angry Birds books for the third grade boy he tutored because the boy was obsessed with a character. When Robert stopped tutoring the little boy because he'd entered fourth grade and aged out of the program, the little boy continued to come to Robert's office at the Experience Corps site because he felt close to him. Each time the boy showed up at Robert's office, he would hand him one of the Angry Birds books to read on his own. The look of excitement that would come over his face was something to see. I know that there are many other stories throughout our program of bonds that last long after tutoring has ended. And I am certain that the warm affection for older adults that sprouted during the tutoring experience lasts as well, banishing ageist beliefs that might otherwise have taken root in these children's young minds. Although Experience Corps was not designed as an anti-ageism strategy, PAHO's Global Report on Ageism points out that many of its features actually make it a highly effective one. One element that makes intergenerational anti-ageism interventions successful is when the older and younger people become emotionally close during the intervention. As with Robert Rouse's experience, we often notice how warm the relationships between our Experience Corps tutors and their students are, and how glad they are to see each other. The fact that our tutors commit to giving at least 15 hours a week during the school year helps them build the trust and mentoring relationship that our students find so beneficial. Another element that the Global Report on Ageism emphasizes is that successful anti-ageism interventions emphasize goal sharing. Our program not only sets the specific goal of reading fluently by the third grade, we also set explicit goals during each weekly session. The report also finds that activities performed in small groups of younger and older adults are much better at reducing ageism than larger groups, and activities that are carefully designed and well-structured yield better results than loosely structured activities. Experience Corps' small group tutoring with one tutor to 1 to 3 children with a well-designed and highly structured format fits the bill for a successful anti-ageism intervention here as well. Based on current research, we should also be optimistic about combating ageism in young adults. Consider these anti-ageism interventions that have been successful in college students. In a reverse mentoring program, the University of Rhode Island college students who taught older adults digital skills improved their attitudes and perspective of older adults once the program ended. They also showed increased interest in working with older adults in their future careers. Sociology students and older adults who conducted community service projects together created valuable relationships, helping the students overcome against misconceptions and assumptions they held about older adults. What can we learn from these efforts and from Experience Corps that can guide us toward a future without ageism? There are many promising pathways to follow. AARP Foundation Experience Corps' program demonstrates that fostering caring and close relationships with older adults builds empathy among our students. The memories of caring and thoughtful older adults are likely to last long after the tutoring relationship ends, influencing student attitudes about older adults well into the future. I'm also very excited to share with you that Experience Corps is preparing to create our own national virtual tutoring corps to complement our in-person model. In the future, tutors will be able to tutor children virtually anywhere they're needed, so that each child can have a caring relationship with an adult focused on their success. Building out the program in this way will intensify and enhance the cross-cultural and intergenerational understanding that the Experience Corps program is known for. The research on college students I shared with you suggests that relatively low-cost, feasible, anti-ageism interventions can be adopted in many colleges as part of an international strategy to reduce ageism. It has been said that prejudice is the child of ignorance. The good news is that by exposing children and young adults to older adults in intentional and mutually beneficial ways, there's a good chance that we can reduce the outdated stereotypes, biases, and misconceptions on which ageism is based. And with the political will, determination, and knowledge that's been shown here today, I believe we are well on our way to doing so. I'd like to leave you with a video of our Experience Corps program so you can experience a bit of it yourself.
My name is Sky. I'm Carlos. My name's Penny. My dream is to be a scientist, be a veterinarian, write a book.
My dream is to help them reach theirs.
I want to read science books, especially about tigers. I want to be able to write a letter to my grandma. I want to read like my friends.
Experience Corps is a dream come true for me.
This program has really opened my eyes to how something so simple can change so many lives.
It feels so good to help these kids, but they have no idea how much they help me.
I found a new sense of purpose. They let me into their world a couple of times a week. It's amazing.
So what's my dream? It's a community of all kinds of people working together to lift each other up. That dream may come true after all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to all our colleagues who have participated in this problem. This is Enrique. Patricia has a problem with internet, and she is trying to solve it. She's trying to get in again. We have seen very important examples on how the participation policy and the presentation of actions against ageism in all its forms can be, all of these activities can be implemented through the strategies mentioned in the World Report. Patricia was going to close the meeting, but I would like to thank all of you for the time, for your participation. I believe all these participations have been extremely important. They have been very rich. They serve as examples for the process of the use of all of this and all the points mentioned in the World Report against ageism. Remember that this World Report has a link in our webpage. We will have not only the complete report, but also the executive summary and also a toolkit. And I would like to thank all of you for being here today. And I would like to invite you to reinitiate or to reinforce the work that we have been conducted for many years in the region of the Americas in this process. And let's hope that by 2030, we will have developed essential actions to eradicate discrimination for reasons of age in all its forms. Thank you so much, and we will see you soon. Thank you, Dr. Vega. I apologize, I lost my internet connection. I would like to call Dr. De Francisco to close the meeting. He's not here. I see him. Oh, there he is, there he is. Good afternoon, my colleagues. And good morning. Thank you so much. Again, I'd like to reiterate what Dr. Vega said, both for the panelists and for PAHO, WHO representatives. Thank you so much for your experience, for sharing your knowledge about ageism in the region of the Americas. This is important because not only this is aligned with the world campaign by the United Nations against ageism, but also this is a topic that is of importance for all ages, not only for older people. But the only thing that I wanted to say is that even though ageism can be suffered by any person of any age, the effects on older persons are very important. So in that sense, the Decade for a Healthy Aging is a very good framework to be able to advance with concrete actions to combat ageism, because fairer and most equitable societies for older persons are equitable and have good benefits for everybody. And I would invite you to continue to join together in fighting ageism. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. De Francisco. Thank you for all the participants and the panelists for being here with us today. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.